Workshop with Artemis. Today, we have a very exciting topic where we will be deepening our understanding of how to track the growth categories, applications across blockchains, and how to discover new up and coming smart contracts and decentralized applications. And we will be doing so with Artemis. And Artemis is an analytics platform aggregating all the important crypto analytics that matter. With Artemis, Web3 analysts will discover the most comprehensive set of tooling available for blockchain application level analysis. This workshop is brought to you by MetricsDAO, a Web3 analytics community. We have a bunch of exciting sessions, educational programs, as well as analytic challenges for anyone who is interested in delving deep into their Web3 analytics journey. So check out our Discord server and get involved if you haven't already. Right. So let's get started. We have Jimmy today with us, who is a chief operating officer at Artemis. And during the course of this workshop, you're very welcome to ask questions. And if something isn't clear, if you would like some maybe resources or anything that comes up, please do drop that in the chat, and we'll get back to you. Right. So Jimmy, over to you.
See. Thanks so much, Vida, and great to see everyone here. Some familiar faces already, so always love to see that. As Vida mentioned, we're going to kind of walk through one of our applications today, which is our blockchain activity monitor, and go through some of the use cases that both us and other investment analysts have kind of used over time. So with that, kind of zooming out a bit, really quick introduction on Artemis. The team is a team of folks that have institutional investing backgrounds that are trying to apply those frameworks to crypto. We've been around for about a year. You might have seen us on Twitter, and we're very much trying to push fundamental understanding of what actually happens on blockchains. And that's kind of the core question that we've always been trying to answer from day one. And with recent product pushes, we've made some strides in that direction, and we're really excited to share that with everyone here today. So with that, let me share my screen. Let's see. All right. So we're going to start with the chain comparison page on Artemis. And what we're going to do today is walk through how someone might use our platform to discover new trends, categories, and applications within Artemis from beginning to end. So when I come to Artemis, the first thing I typically look at is the chain comparison page as a daily check-in every morning to kind of see how activity has changed over time. So what this allows me to do is look at some key across a whole how individual blocks are performing. Here, I'm able to look at active addresses across a whole host of chains: Arbitrum, BNB Chain, Avalanche, Polygon, Solana, and I can see the changes over time. And for example, BNB Chain is currently still entertaining the most number of transactions versus any chains.
I'm sorry.
Ethereum is in the middle.
Jimmy?
There, we're able to see, they're hosting 300,000, 400,000 daily active addresses on a per day basis. Seeing similar stories on the daily transaction side, except Solana is kind of leading the pack in a pretty big way. Then you kind of scroll down, you can look at TVL. You can see that there has been meaningful changes over time, with Solana kind of declining earlier towards the end of this year. With Arbitrum growing substantially over the course of 2023. So, at a general sense of what's going on across blockchains from this initial glance at this Artemis dashboard.
To me, the internet seems to be low, and it's hard to see from the
you
screen.
kind of go to fees and revenues, you can get a better sense of on across again Ethereum, being able to see that we support across. We're able to see all of the different blockchains that we see in this drop-down menu here. So with that quick introduction of kind of how the chain comparison tab is used, the big thing that we are trying to answer here at Artemis is what's actually going on blockchains. When a token price moves meaningfully in one direction or another for either a layer 1 or an ERC20, what's the act driving that? What are the number of addresses that ERC20 contract, amount of gas used for a specific application, how much transfer volume is there for a specific token? Those are all questions that we think underlie the data that is shown on this. So, for example, big question for us is what's going on in Arbitrum. You can see here that Arbitrum is one of the fastest growing blockchains on the chain comparison tab. And you can compare that against Optimism, and you can see Arbitrum actually overtake Optimism in the last couple months. And this is quite a common narrative that's affected crypto Twitter as well as the general crypto community. And we have the answer actually of transaction between these chains. So we've developed this application, what we call the blockchain. And what this allows us to do is actually look at application level activity across a whole different, across a number of different lenses, including active addresses, gas, transfer. We're able to cut this data away. So let's check Arbitrum specifically. And what we're able to see here is a full picture of the active addresses that have been interacting with the Arbitrum and Optimism layer 1 platforms, or sorry, smart contract platforms. With that said, you can actually go a layer deeper and understand the individual categories that are really driving active address growth and change over time. So this tool is incredibly powerful, and I'm gonna walk through a number of different ways you can kind of use it. But there's honestly a lot of discovery that Artemis users can discover themselves through playing with the platform. So the first thing that I typically do is, I just saw on the chain comparison dashboard that Arbitrum is growing meaningfully and above Optimism. So what's actually driving that? And that's something that I can look at in more detail right here. So same story kind of applies. I can see Optimism saw 40,000 active addresses, and that was similar back in February, where you saw 63,000 Arbitrum active addresses versus 44,000 from Optimism. But that has grown meaningfully on the Arbitrum side. So what's actually driving that? As we kind of imagined, it was a lot of DeFi at Arbitrum. There was a lot of wallet transfers that were going back and forth, consuming a lot of gas and making up a substantial amount of the transactions on Arbitrum. And then you had tokens and infrastructure. Tokens and stablecoins also make up a meaningful portion of both gas usage, transactions, and active addresses on Arbitrum. So let's go one layer deeper, which is looking into the actual categories that made up, the actual categories and applications that made up this usage. So you can see here, you can filter by all of these different dimensions. So if I wanted to see changes in, one day change, total active addresses, gas usage, I'm able to do that all in one place, where I'm able to see what the top application categories were that consumed the most gas, that utilized the most applications, the most transactions, and ultimately saw the highest number of active addresses. So in this case, we can go and see that. Let's look into DeFi. So DeFi and Arbitrum is something that's taken up a meaningful amount of mind share for folks in the crypto community. And we can go into DeFi on Arbitrum and understand the underlying applications that are actually driving that growth. So here I can go to applications and I can see so let me just select Arbitrum and look at DeFi, and I can see the actual applications that make up all of the activity on Arbitrum. And we think that this is incredibly powerful because it allows you to see the underlying data that supports what's actually driving both transaction and user growth on a specific smart contract platform. So here we can see Uniswap and Stargate are kind of the leading applications within DeFi on Arbitrum, and there's a number of other household names: SushiSwap, 1inch, GMX at this point, which are all capturing large portions of both active addresses as well as transactions on Arbitrum. And you can actually download this data into CSV and play with it to manipulate kind of the variables that you care about to understand growth over time or changes in these underlying metrics within Excel or Google Sheets or whatever platform you prefer. But what this ultimately allows you to do is have a holistic view of all of the DeFi activity that's happening on a specific chain. So if we wanted to switch between this, great. Now I know that Uniswap, Stargate, Camelot, SushiSwap, and Gains are top applications on Arbitrum. How does that compare to something like Optimism? And I'm curious about where Uniswap is on how Uniswap is doing on Optimism versus on Arbitrum. So here I can see, they've consumed $64,000 of gas. There's almost 100,000 transactions in the last day and about 40,000 active addresses. What does that look like for Optimism, for Uniswap specifically? I can swap these out immediately and I can see the exact same data, and it's meaningfully lower. Only $9,000 of gas was consumed on Uniswap on Optimism. Transactions are much lower, and active addresses is also meaningfully lower. So now we're able to get a sense of how these different applications are performing across chains. And Uniswap, again, being a pretty interesting example, given that it's being deployed across different EVM compatible chains in a pretty meaningful way, but usage across those is so different. So this is a really cool use case we've seen a lot of our analysts as well as internal research use to understand how different DeFi and general applications are being utilized across blockchains. At this point, we think it's an important indicator of blockchain health to understand how some of these leading applications, such as Uniswap, are performing across chains. Given that liquidity begets liquidity, there is an argument to be made that as increasing usage draws to platforms like Arbitrum and potentially away from platforms like Optimism, and you can see this actually quite clearly. If you look at active addresses, we had 4,700 on Optimism as of 3 months ago, and that's actually declined in a very meaningful way to just 1,000 today. But at the same time, Arbitrum has obviously grown in a pretty substantial way, almost 50% versus the usage from just 3 months ago. And you're able to see that in transactions, and you're able to see that in, sorry, let me just filter by applications, by chain. You're able to see that by transactions in a much more meaningful way as well, where Arbitrum is just, kind of eating Optimism's lunch since Uniswap was deployed on both chains, as well as gas consumed, where you can see how much more gas is being paid on Arbitrum, and therefore how much more revenue Arbitrum is able to generate from transactions that take place on its platform. So we really think of this as kind of a fundamental building block to evaluate blockchains in any kind of quantitative manner. If we were to think about if someone were to ask, Artemis or another research platform, how do you think about optimism versus Arbitrum? And we can look at daily active addresses, we can look at transactions, but we think it's much more meaningful to look at it on this deeper lens of understanding what categories are driving growth over time. Is that declining? Is that growing? Is Uniswap as a platform showing meaningful changes over time in terms of volumes? How is stablecoin growth being impacted across these different platforms? These are all the questions that Artemis is trying to solve in order to deliver kind of the fundamental insights necessary to evaluate blockchains at all. So one other very cool thing that I wanted to flag in this vein is we're actually also able to look at something like stablecoin volumes. And this is just an example of a multitude of products that Artemis is trying to will into the world so that analysts such as yourselves can do even more detailed analysis. So what's interesting to see here is the transfer volume of stablecoins such as Tether and USDC, and you can actually see this as a percent share. So what you're able to see here is the percent of total transfer volume that's attributed to USDC and USDT over Arbitrum and Optimism. And you can see here that actually just USDC is kind of the primary stablecoin used on Optimism, while Tether has meaningful market share on Arbitrum. And what you're able to see with this kind of view is kind of changes in market share across stablecoins. So if I was to add, let's say, Ethereum on here as well, you're able to see. Sorry, this is by chains. If I show it by applications, you can see the actual transfer volume of these stablecoins change over time. And in this case specifically, you can see USDT build up meaningful dominance as U.S. regulations look choppier and choppier over the last couple months. So back in February of this year, USDC dominance was as high as 76%. That's now shrunk to about 50-50 in May of this year, which is another sign of, again, stablecoins being a important metric to understand in terms of the health of different ecosystems and a picture into the regulatory landscape of how certain stablecoins are kind of presented. In our minds, this is very much an indication that US-based stablecoins and those related to US regulated entities are losing some dominance in public blockchains like Ethereum. It's something that we monitor quite closely and think could drive meaningful shifts in application development over time in terms of, again, the number of developers working on US-based regulatory applications versus other jurisdictions that might have a different regulatory approach to crypto and blockchain in general. So with that said, we're always looking for more input and insight from the community. We would love for MetricsDAO and other analysts that are looking into data like this to tell us what you're interested in. What are some of the perspectives and lenses that you would care about to look at on a regular basis? We're constantly trying to add new metrics, new chains, trying to get a better fundamental understanding of what are the categories that really matter. And this is a good segue into some of the other views that Artemis is currently presenting on the website. So aside from looking at composition, which is where I spend most of my time as a starting point, trying to understand how the active addresses market share changes over time on a day-to-day basis. What are the applications that are kind of growing? I spend a lot of time on the trending applications page. And what this allows me to do is I can change kind of the time frames to see, how different applications have grown on a week-to-week basis, on a month-to-month basis, and even from a day-to-day basis. And this applies across all chains, and I can filter this for, I want to find out what's the largest growing token or application by active address in a single day, or over 7 days, what was the biggest growing application on Ethereum, and what does that kind of look like? And you can find some interesting insights from this tab alone, which is Pepe has obviously taken off in a pretty meaningful way, as well as Turbo and some of these other meme coins, and you can actually see that very clearly within the trending applications view on Artemis. So if you go into what I just did was I looked at Ethereum, I was looking at a 1 month, I was looking at a 7-day change, and I was trying to figure out what the top applications for that perspective was. And Turbo and Pepe are kind of at the top of the list, and I can kind of go here and immediately see all of these different metrics for the Pepe coin specifically. So we can see that it was launched, right around this day. There was only 40 active addresses that interacted with it, but you can actually track it on a day-to-day basis and see that there was a meaningful growth in the number of active addresses that started to buy the token. And then as that kind of weaned off, the token started to inflate in price and eventually hit its peak on May 5th. So if we actually went to just say CoinGecko, and we looked at the Pepe coin, and again, not financial advice and all of that, but just to show what our platform is capable of showing, you can see that the price movement was basically immaterial at the time that we actually showed a large amount of active addresses interacting with the contract. So this is back in April 19th, 20th, with active addresses kind of jumping up. Transfer volumes were still quite low, but they're growing to like 160 million on the 19th, which is quite meaningful, but wasn't reflected necessarily in the price. You can see here, it was kind of jumping, but not really. And it wasn't until again it peaked on May 5th of 2023. Where there was also the highest level of active addresses as well as transfer volume that it really, really took off. But you could have been on this activity monitor and seeing that there was a spike in active addresses interacting with this contract, as well as active addresses interacting again at the end of April that didn't quite reflect price action at that moment yet, before the huge run up in active addresses and transfer volumes later in May. So this is somewhere where I spent a ton of time trying to understand which ERC20s are seeing substantial growth, what are some of the larger applications that are consuming gas, and how market share is changing over time. But ultimately, it's an incredibly flexible tool that allows me to both look at short-term trends and see how individual ERC20s and NFT applications are trading and being transacted with. But it also allows me to zoom out and take a look at much bigger questions like, how is Uniswap doing across all the different chains that it currently operates within? How is USDC versus USDT dominance looking for across all chains, and especially Ethereum? What's happening on BNB chain? It's a very large platform that has substantial daily active addresses, but it's not super clear to the outside world what the individual applications that are consuming gas and consummating transactions really looks like. So all of these things and more we're able to kind of deliver on the Artemis Blockchain Activity Monitor platform. I'll stop there briefly to see if there's any questions, and I want to also mention a few other sources where analysts can kind of both gain and deliver insights on Artemis.
Okay, it looks like we don't have any questions yet, but if you do have any questions, do drop in the chat. And yeah, in the meantime, what are the resources, Jimmy, that you wanted to mention us?
Yeah, absolutely. So on our end, we obviously have a few different ways that we connect with our community. We have an active Twitter channel that delivers, kind of short insights to the crypto Twitter community, as well as a Substack where we post weekly research as well as kind of longer form pieces about the crypto ecosystem. So we do want to flag just a few things. We can share that super quickly on our side. So we have a research platform where we're able to kind of see so some of the articles that we've posted about recently are what are the top apps in crypto in May of 2023. And we used the blockchain activity monitor to evaluate the top 10 applications by gas fees spent in the last month, as well as a description of all different applications that allows our readers to better understand the actual activity on we've just added a that has segmented out some of the research that we're doing across a few different categories. I'm trying to share this.
I think that you're frozen, Jimmy.
Yeah, the screen is just take a second to load. But the research platform on our website, which I'm about to show, also delivers kind of product updates, longer form research, as well as a weekly recap that provides kind of the latest on news about both regulatory within the crypto space, Web3 partnerships, fundamental analyses on some of the applications that we've been tracking using the activity monitor, and more. So there's definitely a lot of content that we're sharing through avenues outside of our core research platform that's worth checking out for the audience. I'm still waiting for this stream load on the side. Are there any other questions?
I think we don't have any questions at this point.
Okay, great. With that said, I think we've showed some of the core platforms that we were planning to cover on today's session. So we're able by all of these kind of different mediums, again, Twitter, Substack, Telegram. We're very active in our community chat and as well as Discord.
Amazing.
Be taking sites about all different platforms. Also do have something that we that's currently labeled as BAM of the Week on the website. And what that is it's a weekly insight that analysts ask questions that what an individual app within the Artemis platform. So that's content that we're currently supplying, but would love for folks in the MetricsDAO audience to deliver over time.
Amazing. And Jimmy, we do actually have one question from the audience. Which metrics Artemis team uses to add a specific blockchain to the platform?
Yeah, no, appreciate that question. The answer is the Artemis team uses a kind of amount of sources in order to build our data platform. We recognize that there's a lot of different ways to index blockchain data today, and part of the difficulty is that it's hard to standardize and present in a clean way. We believe Artemis is lens on how to crypto and how to eventually think about it in how to think about fundamental investing in this kind of lens. So the short answer to that question is that we create proprietary metrics as well as labelings of blockchain data, but we also utilize a lot of resources from the community as well as from some of the SQL indexers that currently exist in the world today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vipaka, for the question. And I just also wanted to highlight that we will be hosting a second workshop with Artemis on the 3rd of June, so exactly in 3 weeks. So it will be a great opportunity for you to learn even more about the platform. And Jimmy, can you already give us an idea of what will be covered in the workshop?
Absolutely. So today's session was much more focused on our dashboard and kind of the terminal product, where you're able to manipulate metrics and see blockchain activity in a dashboard kind of perspective. Our next session is going to be a lot more focused on our Excel product and our Google Sheets product, which will allow you to pull individual metrics into a spreadsheet of your choosing and manipulate that at the lowest level. So as a quick preview, we're going to be showing in the next presentation a lot more detail about the models that our community as well as our internal team has built. You can kind of see here that we've got hedge fund analysts and other members of the Artemis community building these really kind of outstanding models that walk through fundamental operating metrics for things like Ethereum. And we have other templates and kind of screeners that we're also going to be walking through that provide detail on tracking your portfolio, tracking your staking rewards, valuations of blockchains, as well as other to the Artemis group from this Spartan group ones.
Awesome. Ensure to register to this workshop through a link that has just been posted in the YouTube chat. And for those that are interested in the workshop, Jimmy, like, what is there anything you would advise them to look into to prepare for this workshop, or something to just like test? Any advice?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll pass around a link to some of our the models that currently exist and templates that are already on our website, but can be accessed again through Twitter and or directly or us, as well as community chat on Telegram, so that folks can review that for the upcoming call.
Awesome. We can also share these with our community on Discord, so that you can get access to it, and do ensure to join Artemis Telegram and follow them on Twitter to be able to connect with the community and ask any questions. Right. So I guess that's it for today's workshop. Jimmy, are there any last words you'd like to say?
No, I think very much appreciate the time as always. We're always trying to improve a product that we've built, and we want to make it the most comprehensive kind of data platform out there. So we're very much always looking for feedback, community, and trying to learn with everyone here.
Great. Let's learn together. Let's improve together. And thank you everyone for attending the workshop today. I'm sure you learned a lot. And do ensure to register to the second workshop that we have coming up with Artemis. And we'll see you in future sessions. Thank you, Jimmy, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for having us. Take care. Thank you.